Good morning from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. This is your Sports Talk Hangout, a weekly presentation of the United States Sports Academy. Every Wednesday morning at this time, several members of the faculty and this morning's panel discuss pertinent issues in sport. My name is Dr. Arthur Ogden. I serve as moderator, and I'm the chair of sports management here at the Academy. The panel this morning consists of, to my right, Dr. Tim Foley, who is the Dean of Student Services, and to my left, Dr. Steve Butler, who is the Dean of Academic Affairs. We're into baseball season. We've been talking an awful lot about basketball and football thus far, but we're into baseball season now, the great American pastime. And as much as people want to discuss whether or not it really is still the American pastime, there's an awful lot of people who love baseball. Baseball, however, has been slow to adopt change. One of the slowest things for their adoptions has been the use of instant replay. Well, finally, Major League Baseball, beginning this year, is using instant replay in its game broadcasts. Now, they actually experimented with it in 2008, but wanted to study it a little bit further. And finally, they've come up with the expanded replay system. And just by way of recapping, the expanded replay, which includes home runs, you want to take a look at whether or not the ball really went over the fence or hit the line at the top of the fence. They're going to take a look at a ground rule double, fan interference, stadium boundary calls, force play. Now, force play is with the exception that the fielder's touching the second on a double play, a tag play, a fair foul in outfield only, a trap play in outfield only, batter hit by a pitch, touching a base, which requires an appeal, and passing runners, and overall record keeping. The most notable plays will be eligible for review, however, are balks, tag-up plays on fly balls, fair foul trap balls in the infield, the infield fly rule, obstruction, interference, check swings, neighborhood play at second base. Now that the Major League Baseball season is really ramping up, we're going to engage in discussion today just what the instant replay means for the players, for the managers, and fans. Many think baseball is already a slow game, a game with not too much strategy. There are those who dispute that. I would dispute that. Now, and I'm going to ask Tim first. Will instant replay slow down the game even more? I'm asking Tim because Tim played baseball at Kansas State University, which is major college baseball, and he also coached baseball for a while. So, Tim, is it going to slow the game down?
Possibly, but I think myself and many others think it's worth the sacrifice to get the call right. It's a slow game if you don't know much about baseball, but you're going to see a pitch a lot quicker than you are a football play, unless you're University of Oregon.
Right. Auburn.
But I do think Major League Baseball a few years back did have a real concern about the length of its games. One of the things I think they instituted was hitters stepping out of the box in between pitches. So it will slow the game down somewhat. I don't think it's going to be a major slowdown, but we still want to try to keep a good pace, especially for the fans who get antsy, so to speak.
And I think one of the things we got to remember too is it's not going to slow it down proportionally as much as people think, because you do away with the arguments.
Right.
You know, when Lou Piniella comes out of the dugout and picks up second base and throws it and kicks dirt all over the umpires, that probably takes more time away from the game than the actual appeal process. And some of them are very quick. And I think the timing for this was perfect, because I don't know if you guys saw it, but last night we had the first walk-off instant replay. Right. The Giants were playing the Pirates, and there was a play at the plate, bottom of the ninth inning, and the umpire called the guy out. And I think Tim will testify, when I played college baseball, if the catcher caught the ball and appeared to tag the runner, and the ball got there before the runner, they were always called out.
Right.
And another thing that kind of played into this was they also outlawed the collisions at home plate. Catchers are not allowed to block home plate, and runners are not allowed to go out of their way to collide. But the guy last night, the ball beat the runner. Buster Posey caught the ball, laid the glove right in front of home plate, and the runner was called out. And he would have been called out for the last 30 years that I've been following baseball. If the ball beats the runner to home plate, they always called him out. They showed the instant replay. Buster Posey put the glove right in front of the plate. The guy reached in with his right arm, touched the plate well before his body got to the glove. And in instant replay, they called him safe, and the game was over. The Pirates won 1-0.
Great.
Tim Hudson pitched a complete game, lost it on an error.
Tim Hudson, Auburn grad.
Yeah. But another thing that I found interesting is, and they did this for safety, is the neighborhood play at second base is something that cannot be reviewed. And as a middle infielder, I love that rule.
Yeah.
Review that for those folks out there that might not be familiar with the
Well, oftentimes when there's a ground ball hit and the second baseman or the shortstop is taking a throw at second base, you just kind of move your foot across the base. Most of the time, you go somewhere. They call it the neighborhood play because as long as you're anywhere in the neighborhood, I've never seen an umpire call a runner safe at second base for the middle infielder missing the base unless there's some, if the ball's being juggled or something. But if it's a clean play, and what our coaches always taught us, if you kick dirt, they're not going to know if you touch the base anyway. But I'm glad they left that one out because it's a safety measure for the middle infielders because those guys are always trying to take them out.
Right. Now, is all this going to affect strategy for the game managers?
Well, if it changes, if a home run becomes a double, it definitely will impact the strategy.
And the managers have to manage their challenges as well. Because there was a game this year that the Giants lost by 1 run when Bruce Bochy was out of challenges, and there was a clear bad call late in the game that ended up being the winning run, but he couldn't challenge it because he'd already used his challenges. So what you see what the managers do now when they come out to not to argue with the umpires, but to talk to the umpires. And the umpires have been very cooperative in this as well. The manager position themselves so they can see into their dugout.
Yes.
And somebody's getting the clue from the people upstairs watching the videotape, saying whether or not they should challenge it. And what Clint Hurdle did last night with the Pirates, he said on a play at the plate like that in the bottom of the ninth in a tie ball game, he will always challenge it if he's got one left because you never know.
You never know.
He's got nothing to lose. And he came out and he came right out. He didn't even look back or anything. He just came out and challenged it. And when they looked at the replay, the guy was called safe.
Did it not remind you of a football head coach listening to the coordinators upstairs?
Yeah,
right.
With the red flag in his hand, like
Well, maybe people in Alabama should have listened, instead of asking for another second. How has this been received by the fans, Steve?
I think overall, I think the fans like it because the majority of the calls are being correct. I think what's really bad, and there's been 2 or 3 of them already this year, where the replay is obvious that they got the call wrong, and for some reason they don't change it. And one of the things they started doing up until about 4 or 5 years ago, if there was a controversial play, they were not allowed to show the replay to the fans. Because they didn't want to embarrass the umpires or whatever. But now, and then last year, one of the biggest arguments we heard for instant replay was everybody in the world has a chance to see the replay except the umpires. And when they show the replay in the stands, sometimes it's. I mean, there was a pickoff play last week where the guy at first base was out by a foot, and the umpire called him safe. They did the replay and they still called him safe. And of course, there's the rule this year: if the manager argues at all after the replay, it's automatic ejection. And this manager, I can't remember who it was, but he went berserk. And you sit there and you watch that and they go, how in the world did they not overturn that? And of course, everybody in the fans sees the same replay that they see, and now they're all yelling and screaming and booing or cheering, depending on who the call went for or against.
Well, Tim, do you think that the use of the instant replay is going to eliminate confrontations between managers and umpires? We've been kind of dancing around this issue. And if they're actually looking into the dugout to get some pointers, and then we just had the instance where it was clearly out, do you think this will ultimately eliminate any confrontation?
It won't eliminate. I think it'll decrease it. But 1, by habit, and 2, you still got that competitiveness. You're still going to be arguing, well, where was that pitch at? Why was that outside? So it will decrease it, but it will not eliminate it. And like Dr. Butler made a good point, that's going to help shorten the game up, because we talked about Lou Piniella and others who like to throw objects onto the field.
Leo DeRosa, for those of us Leo DeRosa did that. But ultimately, why do you think it took Major League Baseball so long to adopt this? Were they trying to protect the umpires, or why did it take them so long?
I think baseball, more than any other sport, is tradition driven. You know, for example, you know, one of the reasons why I think there's been many more cases of National Football League players using steroids than Major League Baseball players using steroids. But why did fans in general get such an uproar over Major League Baseball? That's because one of the traditional historic records was being challenged by somebody who is presumed to be using performance-enhancing drugs. And baseball has always been tradition-laden, very slow to move. I think one of the interesting things with the instant replay and the way it'll work going forward, and with the automatic ejections, and you asked a question about confrontations. What people who aren't real fans of baseball don't understand is sometimes when coaches get ejected or managers get ejected, it's for one of two very good reasons. One, to fire their team up. I'll be able to watch a game. I tell my son, this manager's about to get ejected. And another case will be if Albert Pujols is getting in a heated argument with the first base umpire, Mike Scioscia will most likely come out and get himself ejected rather than his best hitter.
I understand that. But when you talk about it took so long because of tradition, remind me of, I forget it was Emerson or Thoreau said, a foolish tradition is a hobgoblin of little minds.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're moving on, and really overall, we don't have a lot of time. Unfortunately, again, we don't have a lot of time. But in the final analysis, what do you think the overall effect is going to be of instant replay in Major League Baseball? We'll start with Tim and let Steve.
You know, I think it's going to be excellent. And my first thing that I thought about was the perfect game that the guy lost because of a bad call, but some of the implications of that guy's life, of what happened to him. You know, he got hate mail. He still gets hate mail, death threats. With this instant replay, I think we just want to know the truth, and I think that's what fans, players, and hopefully everyone will get. So I do think it'll be good.
Even umpires, because Angel Hernandez, they interviewed him before the Monday night game on ESPN, and he's probably the second worst umpire in all of baseball. So he's probably going to get overturned a lot more than most people. And he said he was all for instant replay because the bottom line is they want to get it right.
Yeah.
So here's a guy who's a horrible umpire. He still wants to get it right. He just doesn't do it very often.
And, you know, we got to realize that the human eye cannot catch what today's technology can. And that's just the bottom line.
Right. Are we headed for an all electronic baseball game with electronic grids determining the strike zone and so forth? Is that where we're going, guys?
I don't think so.
Well, you know, with the analytics today, you know, we just saw that NBA arenas just put 6 cameras in the rafters for analytical reasons.
Right.
Eventually, you will know where every ball drops, and for analytical purposes. Right. So possibly.
I think, you know, when you watch a game on TV now, they have ESPN and Fox. They have different names for it. You know, strike zone and you get a pretty good feel of where the pitch is. And if baseball would enforce the strike zone. You know, back to your very first question. I think if baseball would just enforce the strike zone, the games would be much faster. Because right now the strike zone is about this big.
Yeah.
And if you read the rules, it's from the top of the knees to basically the letters.
Well, we'll have to stay tuned about the electronic applications. I know that the NFL is kind of peeved because basketball, the NBA, and I think they're going to be able to use it in Major League Baseball, is able to use their little smartphones and tablets and so forth to take a look at plays, whereas in the NFL, they're still having to take pictures and send the pictures down the sidelines, and it's just, you know, really, really, when they could actually see it if they had their little tablets and their iPhones. Listen, we want to thank you for tuning in and sharing this with us. Want to remind you that those of you who have some suggestions, please email us at sportstalk at usssa.edu with your suggestions. And we're getting an awful lot of suggestions. We know that there's an awful lot going on in the world of sport. I know that those of us in this part of the country are really excited about the new SEC network, which is going to be broadcast in August. From what I understand now, the ATTUverse and Dish Network have it, but DirecTV doesn't have it yet. So those new DirecTV callers. At any rate, on behalf of these two great baseball fans, Dean Butler and Dean Foley, I'm Arthur Ogden from United States Sports Academy and Sports Talk. Have a great day.